The chair now recognizes Dr. Ray Rasker, Executive Director of Headwaters Economics. Mr. Rasker, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Holland and Ranking Member Curtis and members of the committee. I'm pleased to join you today to talk about how land use planning promotes wildfire-resistant communities. I'm the Executive Director of Headwaters Economics. We're an independent nonprofit research group based in Montana. We work all over the country, and we work to improve community development and land management decisions. I'm here to share with you what we've learned through our Community Planning Assistance for Wildfire program. To date, we've worked with communities throughout the U.S. to help them improve their land use planning practices with the goal of reducing wildfire risk. Let me start with giving a few examples of what we mean by land use planning. By this, we mean regulations and incentives that are applied by local governments and their planning departments in collaboration with their fire departments. Examples include landscape regulations that require property owners to manage hazardous vegetation, building codes that require the use of wildfire-resistant building materials on new homes, subdivision design standards for minimum road widths, secondary access and adequate water supply, and incentives to encourage development in areas with lower wildfire risk. So these are just some of the examples of what we mean by improved land use planning. The reason we focus on land use planning is because the wildland-urban interface, which is the area where the built environment mixes with flammable natural vegetation, is now the most common form of development in the U.S. From 1990 to 2010, 43% of new homes were built in the wildland-urban interface, and currently more than 1/3 of all the homes in the U.S. are on these flammable lands. So wildfires today kill more people and destroy more property and cost more to fight than ever before. On average, the federal agencies are spending over $3 billion per year to fight wildfires, and one of the reasons that wildfires have become more expensive to fight is due to the high cost of defending an increasing number of homes. Estimates of the cost of defending homes vary from a low of 30% to a total of 50 to sometimes 95% of the cost of a fire. And some fires in Northern California, the cost of defending homes can range as high as $400,000 to $600,000 per home. So where we build, how we build, and under what conditions we permit development, these are the key determinants of whether we'll be able to control the rising costs, dangers, and damages from wildfire. Reducing wildfire risk to communities is largely a question of reducing the chances that homes and other structures will catch on fire. Post-fire analysis and laboratory research have proven that the area immediately around the home and the home itself are the primary determinants of wildfire survival. The most effective way to survive a wildfire is to put in place regulations, and importantly, the enforcement of regulations that increase a community's chances of surviving a wildfire. Let me explain how the Community Planning Assistance for Wildfire program works. Every year, communities apply to be part of the program. The application is submitted by a diverse group that includes the planning department, the fire department, and elected officials. When a community is selected, we sign an MOU with local government that spells out that the services that we provide are free and that the recommendations we deliver are voluntary. When a community is selected to participate in the program, they receive 4 areas of assistance. We review their planning documents, such as the County Comprehensive Plan, the Hazard Mitigation Plan, development codes and ordinances, and we offer advice on how to strengthen these on reducing wildfire risk. Some communities also receive detailed neighborhood-scale hazard mapping. We offer training programs to increase the capacity of local planning staff, and we provide custom research support. For example, research we conducted recently with Dr. Quarles documents how building a home to wildfire-resistant standards costs about the same as traditional construction. To date, we've worked with more than 30 communities. 9 have received wildfire hazard assessments, and more than 700 planners, fire personnel, elected officials, and others have participated in the training programs. Allow me to end with a description of what we're hearing from the community leaders. They need help with land use planning. Their planning staff, if they have them at all, are already overworked and they're not experts in wildfire. When we offer free assistance and expertise, we help them accomplish something that they couldn't do by themselves. Communities also need easy access to neighborhood-scale wildfire hazard maps. Planning and fire departments use these to encourage and incentivize development in places that are safe, and they use the same maps to identify areas of high risk where development, if it proceeds, is done with the latest science on how to build to wildfire-resistant standards. The wildfire problem will get worse. People are going to continue to build in harm's way, and we're not suggesting that we stop development. Pardon me. For a lot of communities, they realize the fires are coming, regardless of what we do, right? I mean, and so what the communities that apply to our program, what they're interested in is how can they put in place requirements for example, landscape treatments on private property, flame retardant building materials, that sort of thing. So for example, we worked in Summit County, Colorado. It's the first community we worked with, and there was quite a turnaround there. At first, they had a requirement to plant mature trees and bushes immediately next to the house, which is an effort to hide the homes, right? So this is in Breckenridge.
Right.
And by the time we were done, they changed that around, their paradigm shift, and they basically said, no, we now need to inspect properties and have defensible space around homes.
And it worked last year when they had that fire.
It sure did.
Yeah, thank you. I yield back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Forest Service research and other studies have shown that the most effective way to protect structures and communities from wildfire is to create defensible spaces and install fire-wise retrofits. What are the biggest challenges preventing more communities from completing wildfire hazard assessments and ensuring homeowner participation?
Thank you for that question. There's several pinch points, several places where people need more help. Neighborhood scale hazard mapping is very useful, but the ability to provide that for communities is limited. These maps help identify areas where there's high risk and also areas that are not at risk, where it's perfectly okay to build as much as you'd like. We find that planners, people who are in that profession, have never, during their years in school, been exposed to issues related to wildfire. We also find that fire departments are never, those staff are never exposed to issues related to land use planning. So one of the things we've done is brought the planning department and the fire department to work together collaboratively with local government. So that's more assistance, more land use planning help. These planning departments are full-on busy. Now you come in and say, now you need to plan for wildfire. They need help getting that done. And they need help with hazard maps.
Next question, Mr. Rasker. What is needed to scale up a program like Community Planning Assistance for Wildfire, CPAW?
There are more and more land use planners who are getting good at wildfire. We work with Wildfire Planning International, and they in turn have identified quite a few people around the country who are getting pretty good at this. We've got one person on staff, for example, in Bend, Oregon, who participated in our program and is now working to help other communities in Oregon. And we have people identified in Montana. So more people working in more places. I think we can do a better job with training, more planners to be good at wildfire issues. We can engage the firefighting departments more. I think a lot of training for fire departments on what a land use planning code looks like and how to enforce it. Because oftentimes when a code is passed by a city planning department, it works better if the enforcement of the code is done by somebody in uniform. Fire departments are well trusted. So those are some of the ideas.
Thank you, thank you. And last question is, what are the opportunities for the Forest Service to replicate the success of a program like CPAW? And are there other ways federal funds could better incentivize community land use planning and resilient construction, in your opinion?
So I think we should reward good land use planning where it exists. The good land use planning that we're seeing around wildfire doesn't just come from our program. The City of San Diego, Flagstaff, they've all done really good work on their own. Boulder, Colorado has done really good work on their own. I think as a profession, land use planning focused around reducing wildfire risk, that doesn't exist yet as a profession. There's just a scattering of people. So I think we should elevate it. We should have annual conferences. There should be a trade journal about this. There should be universities graduating people from planning departments specializing in wildfire. So I think we're getting there. I think we've got a critical mass going already.
Thank you so much for that insight.